you may want to raise, and you say, Steve, I already put in the suggestion box, then we're good. But let me open the floor at least and see if anybody has any questions, ideas, or anything that they want to put forward. One of the things I do want to acknowledge is as a true supporter, I mean, since I've gotten appointed, the Shelburne Worship Center, which is where these ladies are from, have really supported my candidacy here and my appointment. They gave me the opportunity to be introduced to their congregation. I thought that was really impactful. Yesterday they had their first gala for Christmas dinner for the community. That was well attended. And I thought that these are the kinds of things that if you're going to be in the community, whether you're a church or you're a business or otherwise, it's really about getting out and engaging in the community. So I just wanted to acknowledge what they've been doing, the excellent work, and I hope that that continues. And from some of the initiatives I heard the pastor talk about, I'm certain that in 2018 those initiatives will continue. So I want to thank you ladies for that. But this is, again, evidence of Shelburne stronger together, working together. They can easily just say, listen, we're just doing a banquet for ourselves. We have our own little church over there, and we'll just do our own festivity and treat it as a country club. But no, they've opened their doors and tried to connect with the community, and I think they've done a really good job of doing that. And that's the sort of example that we should learn from and want to continue to sort of replicate in our own little way in the town of Shelburne, again, making it stronger together. So again, let me open up the floor. Any ideas, any questions? Anybody have any questions of me? I'd be happy to answer them.
Art, I want to ask a question, and I don't know if you're going to say it's not an appropriate question. But
we'll see.
With Shelburne growing, and we used to be 3,000 people, now it's almost 8. So it's a really larger section of new homes, and I wonder, from something I heard from people in the new development, and I started thinking, well, what about the environment? We have such big claims about the environment, to protect the environment because of the Paris Agreement, and a lot of words and a lot of documents, and what I see happening is more and more vanity rather than environmental protection. So with more and more disposable items and single-use items, we're going to have a lot more of that in Shelburne. It's going to require disposal. Also, you're going to have more chemicals on the lawns, because that was something I heard was happening in the new development. One person wanted to have as natural a lawn as possible with the dandelions and the broadleaves and whatever, and was under a lot of pressure from the other people that prefer the vanity lawn. And then that one person felt, not emboldened enough to carry on the way they wanted to, so they kind of joined with the vanity program. So, do you have any ideas, or how will Shelburne be dealing with these matters that seem small, but they're important? Because I think, my belief is that a reduction of disposable items is a must if the environment is going to be protected, rather than enlarging. Everywhere you look, there's, well, here's some disposable things for your convenience, and here's some more disposable for your convenience. And here is some more chemicals for your lawn to make it a perfect green, which is not a perfect green at all. It's more chemicalized green. So what are your thoughts about environment on one hand and vanity on the other?
Vanity on the other. Well, I think that could be answered in two ways. I mean, first of all, these are issues, especially of a growing town or a growing city. So we're not sort of unique to some of the challenges that you put forward. There are ways for it to be handled. First and foremost, it's our own individual consumption and our footprint that we leave on the environment. And so it starts within your home. What are some of the things that I'm disposing? What are some of the things that I'm using that are potentially harmful to the environment? So there's actions that we could take collectively within our own homes to minimize our footprint on the community. So that's number one. Number two, the town has a role in that as well, as a growing community where you look at initiatives, whether it's recycling initiatives or when you're developing the town, initiatives that's going to have the least amount of impact or footprint on the environment. These are energy efficient homes, lighting, etc. are all things that speak to leaving the least amount of footprint on the environment. So these are things that can be done from a town perspective, and there are things that can be done from an individual perspective as well. So the development or environment versus the vanity, who has the vanity? It's us as individuals. And when we sort of change our mindset as to the things that are important, and we're thinking not just about our immediate needs, but we're thinking about the environment and leaving a good environment for our families down the road, then we start to change our own individual behaviors as well. So I think it's twofold when you're considering what could happen by way of vanity versus the environment. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Call me Debbie.
Debbie.
I'm not that old. I was just wondering, because Shelburne is growing and because we struggle with transportation,
Yes.
because we don't have a bus service, and we have, not only Shelburne, but we have Honeywood and working in the community service field, that's one of the areas that we realize that we need transportation. Any suggestions? We do have a transportation committee with community services, and that they're looking at transportation. But do you have any idea how
So we're talking about transit in the town in general, right?
Transportation in, well, not so much in town. Let's face it, you can walk.
You mean from, let's say, from here
Let's
to
say from
Orangeville?
from
yes,
Shelburne
yes.
to Orangeville.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Um,
one of the things that I worked on when I just moved here, I joined the committee, transit committee that was struck by John Telford and Ron Rowe from Dufferin Biz. And there was a pilot project that we had come up with where, I think I may have mentioned this to some of you already, where for 2 years we would fund a pilot project between bringing that transportation between Orangeville and Shelburne because of the obvious needs. We then took that to Go Transit, and they shot that down. They shot it down because they felt that the numbers didn't justify the extension because they were already struggling with the numbers in Orangeville. So then that sort of fell off the rails. What has happened now, recently in the news, you may have been aware of this, that Orangeville Council has passed their resolution to now discuss with Shelburne ways of bridging that gap and maybe doing something between the two to create transit and that flow back and forth. So that's where we are right now. That's sort of hot off the press. We haven't, as council here in Shelburne, have spoken about that as of yet. I would anticipate in the next maybe few meetings or so that issue will be addressed, but that's one of the #1 priorities on my agenda as well. I have a background in transit. I think that's one of the reasons why, I think I mentioned earlier, that MPP Sylvia Jones invited me to a meet with her and her team to discuss how we can improve transit in Dufferin-Caledon in general, but certainly in Shelburne as well. So that's on the radar, and I'm going to keep it on the radar until we get something in place.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Food is becoming a problem worldwide, in the sense that when I go to the store, I'm looking for natural products, and all I can find is products that have is engineered. And I think I went to one of the stores out there just the other day, and I was looking. You can't find oranges with seeds in it anymore. You can't find any natural products anymore. And that becomes a problem, because I've always said, as an athlete, if you're telling me not to take steroids, and then you take it and you put it in my food, you're allowing a corporation to do what you're telling me not to do. How do you feel about that, and how do we move forward and have some choice? Because the corporations are not leaving us any choices anymore. They're saying, this is what we're going to give you, and this is what you're going to have. I like to see more choices in my food. So if I want to eat healthy, that's good. If somebody else wants to eat another way, that's good. That's choices.
So how do I feel about it? Well, I mean, certainly I don't feel good about our food being poisoned, if you want to call it that way, or genetically modified as you identified it, and there's been enough studies that speak to that. I guess there are a couple of ways to look at that. One is, again, what can I do to make that difference? And so whether you have the space or not, maybe you say to yourself, you know what, instead of me buying these genetically modified or injected or sprayed tomatoes, maybe I start to grow some in my backyard. That's number one. Number two is we have markets here, farmers markets, local markets here in town where the stuff is coming straight from the earth to the shelves. Support those local markets where you have that diversity that you're talking about. So instead of going to the big box stores that are getting things shipped in from San Diego and they're being sprayed to be preserved, so when you get it, it's still ripe or it's still edible, maybe you consider, instead of spending, even though it may be cheaper to get it at No Frills or Walmart, maybe I support the local market here where I know that they're growing it here, I know that it's fresh, I know that they're not spraying it, and it's coming straight from the ground to my plate. So that's an option that we can look at. And again, this gets to, again, stronger communities, stronger together. We're supporting the businesses that are there that are vibrant, or to make them vibrant, but certainly that could help benefit not only them but ourselves as well. So that's an option that I would encourage you to look at, supporting those markets, seeing when they're available, and buying those foods that you know are going to benefit you and your family as well. Yes?
A few years back, we had a Katimavik. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Katimavik, but they're volunteers. They're from all over Canada. Anyways, we have community gardens, and that it worked for a year or two and then not. But that could be a possibility, is to have a community garden. And where we had it last time was over by, I don't know if you're Jelly Street south, over by where KDH, kind of that direction. Whoops, that direction. Where am I?
You're right, that way.
Yeah, that direction. Right, where am I facing? Whatnot. So a community garden, and that's where maybe the churches could, you know, like do that. Because in Orangeville, they have the community garden there, and you get a plot, and it was $10, and it's down on Center Street where the old police station was, where the OK Bowling. No, you guys wouldn't know where the OK Bowling alley was. You say that. But there's a community garden there, and you $10, and you have your own plot, and you can, you know.
Yeah, they did that that's a good idea, because
So-
they did that in there's a school in, where was it? It's on Lawrence, in Toronto. And they have-
Thorncliffe? I think I heard that on CBC, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and they have a community, that's excellent.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a wonderful idea, and only because too, when you're talking about natural food and whatnot, it's more expensive.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier for someone that is on a budget, or that maybe it's a lot easier to buy, instead of shopping from around the supermarket, to buy indoors, right? So again, if we had a community garden, you know, that would be wonderful, because then,
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and I don't know whether, and I'll actually raise that with council as well, to see whether the town would be interested in taking the lead on something like that, because if they did that and we had people who were buying locally, then the proceeds from those sales, we could actually use it to support local initiatives, right? So whether that's helping seniors or whatever the case may be, it would be sort of a circle effect where we're benefiting each other, right? So I think that's a fantastic idea. I'll raise that. Yes, the churches and as individuals, we could probably do that, but I think maybe if the town, I'll see, but it sounds like a really good idea. If they took charge and led by example in that way, then it could be beneficial for the reasons I just identified. So I think that's a great idea. Yes, Jade?
I'm responsible for teams at the library, and my group has been in talks with the Horticultural Society here to maintain something of this nature starting next year. So I mean, I think we could probably throw some support behind that as well.
Okay.
As far as logistics go.
Good. So then that's something that you and I could talk about. Jade and I talked about having a great partnership moving forward. This is a great example of that. All right, that's perfect. Any other questions? Yes.
What do you think about like some more street
Oh yeah, some of these places are dark. Some of them are really dark.
The fog came, it's like really dangerous.
So there's certain areas that we are responsible with the town, there's certain areas that we're not. Like along Highway 89, for example, is MTO, I believe. Right, and so we're not responsible for the lighting there. The other areas within the town, that's different. And this is where we have to exert the right amount of pressure when we're talking about the developments who are building. My understanding of listening to people, when it came to Van Dyke, they've been woeful when it's come to that. I think we've learned a lesson from the town as a result of the efforts with Van Dyke. Lakeview has been a little bit better with respect to the lights that they put up.
Yeah.
But I think the developers, we have to ensure that the developers, when they're building these areas, they have the requisite amount of lighting within the town so that people can see where they're going. And not only that, sidewalks. Along Dufferin 124, by the Tim Hortons, they're going up to the new development there. I mean, people are walking on the side of the roads right now. That can't be good.
It's dangerous.
And so whether that's something the town has to do or MTO has to do, but we know people are walking back and forth. It's not enough to say, well, you know, it's been like that for years and who cares? There's nothing we can do about it. So some initiative has to be taken there to make that safe for the people that are there, because I think it is quite dangerous, especially when there's a whiteout and people are walking from Tim Hortons home on that side of that road.
No one's ever walked down that road before.
Yeah, and a lot of people are walking on it now because of the Tim Hortons there, right? It's,
Well, and there's not been a subdivision in that area before.
yeah.
So it was very poor planning on who's ever part, I'm not saying.
No, I understood. Look,
But
it
it's
was
very
responsibility.
poor planning because,
Nobody thought nobody in Shelburne ever walked it, so why
Yeah.
would you put a sidewalk in where nobody ever is?
Yeah, I think that has to be addressed. I'm not sure where we are as a town in addressing that particular area, but certainly it's a concern. And lighting within the town is, I know this is not old news for the town of Shelburne and for the mayor and the rest of the councillors, but we'll see what is going to be done. But certainly with the new development, that has to be factored into the equation as well. Certain areas we have control, and it falls on us. Other areas not so much, and we have to depend on others to sort of see. I mean, we approached the Minister of Transportation just by putting one of those flashing lights at 124 and 89, and they've shut that down, at least for now. They were like, well, when Tim Hortons did their study, it wasn't a big traffic issue, and so, you know, we'll get there when we get there. My understanding is that they're going to look at it again this summer, but even getting something like a flashing light, we came to them with the stats saying, look, it's dangerous there, cars turning, all this other stuff, and they basically shelved it and said that it's not on their radar, on their priority list. But as I said, you know, we have to be the ones that are constantly pushing the issue, because if we're not showing that we care, they're not going to care for us. And so we have to, and this is why I talk about partnerships, about partnering with people outside of the town like Sylvia Jones or David Tilson and others, is to get the word out there with hope with these relationships that we're forming, that we can get the things that we need in town. So that's ongoing. I know that you're going to be looking at it again this summer, so we'll see what happens with that. Yes, sure.
Something. But I feel like some of the questions I'd like to ask you would be the question to ask Sylvia Jones or David Tilson, but you're here.
I'm here. I'm on the front lines.
So coming back to food, food is so, like, I was brought up to believe that food is really precious and you respect food. I see no respect for food in Canada, and that's because food is so plentiful. And food is the cheapest thing in this country. You could buy 4 bananas for $1, or if you shop better, you may get 4 bananas for 50 cents. So I consider food to be really, really cheap. How do you feel about fake news? I would ask you this only because something has started in Shelburne lately, and it's going to make me sound like Scrooge when I say this, but it's as if people are being encouraged to pretend to be poor and to claim poverty and come for free dinner. Because I heard word that there are many hungry people in Shelburne, and therefore free dinner is going to be served. But it looks like people are having difficulty finding these few people. So now other people are being encouraged to come with their friends to make this thing look like a success. So if it is successful, then it makes Shelburne look like a little town full of hungry people. I don't believe that to be the case at all. And in a country where we waste more than 100 million tons of food a year, I think it's really unconscionable to be claiming hunger and be making claims that the food banks are expanding. Food banks have been expanding for the past 40 years. I don't see an end to it. I see food banks as the great enabler. And I wonder, what upsets me very much is that there are farmers around the globe that have absolute horrors so bad that the only choice is suicide, because the horror that's heaped upon them is worse than death. And we have, I don't think we have any right to bring food from the third world into this country.
Okay, so those are really deep issues, but before I tackle that, I want to, Jay?
Sorry.
If I want to do the draw before, because people are getting ready to leave right now, so I'm going to tackle your issue. Let me do the draws for those who are leaving to have a fair opportunity before they leave. So Jay's going to be sort of third party. We're going to do that in the book.
Yep. We're gonna start with Andrew's book here.
Okay.
And just to clarify, your rule is that they have to be in this room?
Yep.
Okay. Debbie Harrison.
That's me. Thank you.
If I didn't know better, Debbie, I'll say that's fixed.
This is not fake news. This is legit.
Okay, do we want to do the jelly one?
Let's do the jellies. Let's get them out of the way.
Gonna do jellies. We have Mary Ann Sterling.
Hey.
Okay. And last but not least, that doesn't have a name on it. Stephen Monk. Oh, good.
Hey.
You have to share.
Thanks. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Thank you. She's tearing up. Is that overwhelmed? Okay. So, any other questions? Oh, sorry. So the question of or the point of waste, whether or not there should be anybody, or there should be the claim of anybody being hungry in Shelburne, the availability of food or the waste of food, those are all true. There's no question that there's a lot of waste when it comes to our food, and the food that we throw away. A lot of restaurants at the end of the day throw away a lot of food. What people don't know is the legalities behind that. So yes, restaurants do toss away a lot of food. Their concern, though, is that if they give away the food and something happens, they're going to be sued. And so whether you agree or not, but that's usually a big issue when it comes to a lot of these restaurants and a lot of these issues, is they're afraid that if they put the food out there and something happens, somebody's going to bring a lawsuit and they don't want to deal with it, so they'd rather throw it away. And at the end of the shift, they had all these sandwiches that were sitting there, and they were going to throw them in the garbage. If you took one as an employee at the end of the shift and they caught you, you were fired. So instead of giving it to your staff, where they're hungry, they've worked an 8-hour shift, and they're taking it home, and you're going to throw it in the garbage anyways, they'd rather throw it in the garbage rather than give it to their employees to eat, much less they give it to the public. If we can sort of get around that issue, and I think we are slowly but surely, you're starting to see people who have now developed businesses where they say, hey, listen, instead of you throwing away the food, we're going to come and chuck it away, and we'll take whatever responsibility.
Second harvest.
There you go. Thank you. And so it is happening. The change is happening where we are getting away from the waste, and there are people who are trying to make a difference, as you say. So it is happening. I still don't think that takes away from the fact that there are people who are still hungry, whether in the town of Shelburne or otherwise. Because what it really comes down to is affordability. The cost of these things, even though you say they may be cheap, if I'm on a fixed income and I'm a senior, when that goes from $1 to $1.25, maybe I can no longer afford it. You can, but for me, I can't. And so it may be cheap to some, but very expensive to others, depending on their financial situation. And I think that is what has led some people within the segment of the population to require help and assistance. Another reason for the food banks as well is you have newcomers that have come to the country who haven't settled themselves as of yet. And so the argument may be, well, if you're working, you're here, and you have access to all these things, why do you need a food bank? but that doesn't take into consideration those who have come to our country that may need a leg up or some sort of assistance until they get onto their feet. And so for those particular purposes, I think the food bank serves a value to the community. It should never be an enabler. Nothing should be, welfare shouldn't be an enabler. But it should be there for those who really need it and for whatever reason are not on their feet and need some sort of temporary assistance. Yes, ma'am?
One place that there is some hunger in Shelburne is schools. There is a breakfast program, and if people want to support something and they don't, you know, like if a community group wants to have some kind of fundraiser or something, that's a good place to put money into the breakfast program.
I should tell you that the deputy mayor at the recent budget meeting actually increased the budget for that very same program. And so that is occurring. And yes, and you would ask the question, why are kids in 2017 going to school hungry? How's that possible with all the food that, as you say, is being wasted? The problem is the food that is being wasted is not getting to these families.
Well,
And they can afford it.
sometimes maybe they even have food at home, but the kids, they don't have time in the morning, so kids wind up going to school hungry, so it's not
Or
like
their
it's
parents
full.
are working,
Yeah.
you know, we're a bedroom community. We are getting that way, so you have people leaving, you know, leaving at 6 and.
Kids are hungry in the morning
Or
at
to
6.
daycare in the morning.
I'll take a step further. I think it's beyond just an inconvenient schedule that is leading to this. I was volunteering at a food bank in Toronto, and you have your perception and your ideas of what people will look like when they come into this establishment. You're thinking it's going to be the homeless guy. You can clearly tell he's homeless, and you know, and that's why you're there. Then you're there and you're serving, and then you see people walking like us, looking just like us, and you're thinking, what the hell's going on here? And you hear the stories when you inquire, and it's, yeah, I'm working, yeah, I'm paying my bills, but once that is done, there's nothing else for me. So you'll see them around in town, they're going forth into their homes, and you think everything must be good. But walk to the local food bank, and the same person that you waved to on the street that you saw get into their car, going on the same Highway 10 to get to their jobs, is the same person that's going to the food bank because they don't have enough with the rising cost of things.
Or sometimes it's just a temporary thing. Somebody
True as well.
illness in the family and they can't work for a short time.
Somebody got laid off. I mean, how many times have we turned on the television and hear X amount of jobs being cut? Sobeys cutting 800 jobs. This person's cutting 800 jobs, 1,000 jobs here. That has a major impact on families. And so yes, we may own homes. Yes, we may lease homes. Yes, we may have a car. Yes, our kids go to school. But with the dwindling effect of our dollar with rising costs or cutbacks on regards to income in the family, then this is where we need these things. So no, it should never be an enabler, but because of temporary situations, I think it's important to have. But the community gardens and other initiatives that we talked about would go a long way in helping that as well.
The question I have is accessibility. I was on the accessibility committee around, I was on it for around 7 years. Heard much about it, but the one thing is not only with seniors, but my friend has MS. And the sidewalks are atrocious. She was crossing across from Town Hall, but on the opposite side. And because they weren't graded, she fell out of her chair. Her chair fell into the hole, and she
Flipped over into it.
Yeah, and I mean, the chair is a heavy chair, it's a motorized chair and whatnot, you know. She wasn't hurt, she scraped her elbows, and of course everyone came to help her. But that's just, the sidewalks are, and where I live on Simon and Jelly, well, we had that water main break, right? And that has not been really repaired that. And the sidewalks are not good.
So what I would say in a situation like that is, I mean, there's sometimes the general wear and tear, especially when you go through winter seasons and there's divots and all this stuff. I'm not saying that this is the case, and my excuses for the condition of the sidewalks, but these are the kinds of things that you have to bring to the attention of the town. And you know, you email your councilors and say, hey, listen, you know what, on this street, this particular sidewalk, you need to get somebody out there and try to make a difference or rectify the situation. This is where the ears and eyes of the community help along. I mean, yes, you may expect these guys should be out there paying attention to this stuff. I shouldn't have to call or email anybody. But this is the town working together, right? We're trying to benefit, and sometimes I see things that you don't, and vice versa. So I would encourage you, I'm not saying that it's perfect out there, there's no question that there are issues, but if you see something, especially something as important as that, I would encourage you to stay email either myself or somebody within the town that, whatever department may be responsible, and have them take a look at it. I can't imagine that they would ignore that, because,
Well, they fixed it.
see, there you go.
They fixed it.
Yeah, there you go.
Pardon?
We did a walk through the town, because I'm on the accessibility
Okay.
committee. Okay, and Mayor Bennington was actually in a wheelchair. I don't know if you heard about it.
No,
And then we
no,
all
I
had to
haven't.
walk through town to get it, to at least identify what it would be like for somebody who is in a wheelchair going through town, and basically, I don't think it was last summer, I think it was summer before, or just getting into the winter, basically they spent the entire budget just trying to maintain, but then when the winter again, you get the upheaval, the down, you know, and it is a matter of pointing it out, because we are working hard.
Oh,
on the
I trust me, being on the accessibility committee, Walter Bonato and whatnot,
Yeah.
like we've done
It's
so much.
a
It's a, but,
process too.
It's a
but
process,
point
but
out the areas
has to
that are
be-
accessibility issues, and do bring them forward to the town.
There's sidewalks and points and stuff, you know, where schools, so it's going somewhere.
well, I just see a lot of yellow lines painted, like where the cracks are, like,
Mhm.
so people can see them. But they haven't been
It's,
fixed.
it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
So I think eyes and ears open, as you just sort of gave a testimonial to, that there are initiatives that are being taken to try to address these issues. It's something that reoccurs year after year, but it's important to have people like yourselves who are paying attention to the things that are happening in the community and making it known. And I'm happy to hear that the situation that you raised and identified was taken care of. So I'll take maybe one or two more questions. I want to respect people's time. It's almost 3. We're supposed to end at 2:30. So if anybody has any questions, great. If not, then we'll conclude it for today. This is not going to be the end. There'll certainly be more opportunities. This is not a one and done situation. So you guys have access to my email, my card. Yes, great.
I just want to ask you, what does Shelburne look like to you coming 2018?
In the summer, not the winter.
Yeah.
Warm.
Don't- you can't
That's what it looks like. It looks warm to me. What does it look like? It looks like what we're seeing right now, which is breaking down barriers, coming together, listening to each other, supporting each other. That's what I hope to see Shelburne be, not only in the summer of 2018, but beyond. Because as I was saying earlier together, the Stronger Together sort of hashtag or slogan is not just something I just woke up with and thought this would be catchy. It's really about working your words, as Andrew said. It's about putting it into action. So that's what I'd like to see, and it's happening now. So I don't think we have to wait until 2018 to sort of see what I envision. Just having this forum, this meeting, greeting each other, supporting each other. And I was saying to some of the people earlier today, I guarantee you now, if you see some of these faces at the local No Frills, it's not going to be the same way it was before. There's going to be a smile. There's going to be acknowledgement. I remember you. And so that's what I'm hoping, because if we're able to do that, as small as you may consider that, but if we're doing that as a community where we're acknowledging each other, supporting each other, respecting each other, then we truly have a community. We're truly stronger together. So that's what I'm hoping for. The other issues that are raised with respect to transit, bullying in schools, all these other issues, we'll work on that individually as a town and as a community. We'll deal with those things. But I'm looking at this as a place where there are opportunities. We're going to see those opportunities. There's diversity. There's a number of different issues, and we're embracing all of that from now, 2018, 2019, and beyond. So that's what I'm hoping for. And the initiatives that you guys are embarking on with the church is all a part of that. So I see myself partnering with organizations like yours, the community at large, and other organizations together, again, making the area stronger. So that's what I envision. So with that, I guess we'll bring the session to a close. I want to thank you for coming. Jade will probably be on the outside, but I'll thank her personally for her efforts. Andrew for being here as well. But most importantly, I want to thank you guys. The suggestion box is not going to go to waste. I certainly will be combing over that later on today, and whatever I could bring forward, I'll certainly do that. You have my cards. They're there. It's on the town website as well, my email address. If you have any concerns, issues, please just contact me, and I'll be happy to address it in any way I can. So thank you for coming. Let's give yourself a round of applause. Please take anything away. You're going to post it online, right? Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your support.